Good morning, KCPS. I'm Megan, and I'm back to read another book with you this week. I hope you're having a great week of teaching and learning, and I'm excited to read with you again today. Today I brought a very special book about a famous person in history named Muhammad Ali. A champion is born. In this book, there are some amazing illustrations, and that's going to be our focus of our lesson today. In the book, the illustrations lend a powerful insight into our characters and the setting and the time in which this story takes place. Illustrations, a lot of the times, play a huge role in our stories. Remember, illustrations are the pictures in the story that are drawn by a person. In this case, our illustrator is Frank Morris, so he drew all the pictures. Now, illustrations can do a variety of things. Illustrations can tell you something about the setting or where and when the story takes place. Our illustrations can tell us something about the character that maybe isn't apparent in the text. Our illustrations can show what is happening in the story. Our illustrations can also create a mood. And then also they can give you extra details that are not included in the text or the actual words of the story. So when I'm reading today, I want you to be paying close attention to all the illustrations or pictures. And I want you to be thinking about why the author chose those, what do they tell us about our character or characters, and then also what do they reveal about the setting or the time and place in which the story is being told, because that plays a role in today's story. Let's get started reading and let's be having a close eye on our illustrations. Muhammad Ali, A Champion is Born, written by Jean Beretta, illustrated by Frank Morris. February 25th, 1964, Miami Beach, Florida. Pow! Cassius Clay bounces around the ring on the balls of his feet, throwing jabs and dodging uppercuts from champion Sonny Liston. Clay is the clear underdog, but after 6 intense rounds, he surprises everyone and wins the World Heavyweight Championship. I shook up the world! May 25th, 1965, Lewistown, Maine. Pow, pow! The two boxers meet for a rematch, only Clay has a new name, the name of a champion, Muhammad Ali. It means worthy of praise, most high. Ali wins again. I am the greatest. October 30th, 1974, the Rumble in the Jungle. Kinshasa, Zaire. Heavyweight champion George Foreman pounds on Ali for 7 rounds. Ali stays on his feet and waits for Foreman to get tired. He then delivers a stunning knockout combination to win the World Heavyweight Championship a second time. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. His hands can't hit what his eyes can't see. September 15th, 1978, New Orleans, Louisiana. Pow, pow, pow! At age 36, near the end of his career, Ali wins the rematch against champion Leon Spinks to become the first boxer to win the World Heavyweight Championship 3 times. And he owed it all to a stolen bicycle. Winter, 1954, home of 12-year-old Cassius Clay, Louisville, Kentucky. Hurry up before they eat all the popcorn, Cassius yelled as he raced to the Louisville home show on his brand new bike. And the hot dogs too. Wait up, answered best friend Johnny. Don't worry, I'll save you the bun, Cassius choked. A heavy rain soaked the streets, but nothing slowed them down. Cassius felt cool on his bike. The new chrome shined brighter when it was wet. He rolled up to the home show and hit his brakes hard. The front tire kicked up a wave of water. He looked back at Johnny. Did you really think you could beat me? Not only can I ride fast, but I look good doing it. They hopped off their bikes and ran inside. The Louisville Home Show was an annual bazaar. It was held for all the black merchants who were not allowed to attend or sell their products at the white bazaars. Segregation was as real as the rain in Louisville, and Cassius saw that his people suffered for it. He spoke proudly of them. I know why they won't let us in the white bazaars, because they're afraid we'll show them up. He pointed to every booth and said, "One day I'm going to get one of those, and one of those, and one of those. But right now, I have room for one more free hot dog before..." "Oh no, dinner! We're late! We gotta get home!" They stepped outside and Cassius froze in his tracks. "No!" he shouted as he looked in every direction. "My bike! Where's my bike?" Cassius ran up the street. "Did you see a red bike? Did anyone see a new red bike?" His eyes welled up with tears. "I need a policeman." Finally, an older woman spoke up. "Go back in the building and go down to the basement. Ask for Officer Joe Martin." He found Officer Martin and explained every last detail. "It was red and white with white wheel tires and chrome. I just got it for Christmas and there wasn't a mark on it." His fists were clenched like hammers. He raised his voice. "And then when I find whoever took my bike, I'm gonna whoop him." Cassius was small and thin. Officer Martin looked at him over and offered some advice. "Listen, son, before you whoop somebody, you better learn to fight." That was not what Cassius expected to hear, especially from a police officer. It took a moment for him to catch his breath and look around. Then it all made sense. For the very first time, Cassius Clay was standing inside a boxing gym. The energy in the room made his heart race. He loved the sound of boxing gloves smacking the speed bag and the rhythm of the jump rope slapping the floor. He loved the shuffling feet of the shadow boxers and the smell of the rubbing alcohol in the air. Ding, ding! A bell rang and two young guys started bobbing and weaving in the ring. "Wow," thought Cassius. Photos of old boxing champions stared out at Cassius, as if to say, "Let's go a few rounds." "We're here every weeknight if you want to join us," Martin said. On the way home, Johnny kept repeating, "You're going to get it when you get home. Boy, you're going to get it." And he did. His dad pitched a fit so loud, it echoed off the neighbor's house. Cassius heard every word, but his mind was really on the boxing gym. A few days later, he was shocked to see the same gym on a local TV show called Tomorrow's Champions. "Look," he said to his mother, "that's the gym. That's Officer Martin. He trains the boys." Cassius got so excited he threw on his jacket and dashed out the door. "I want to be a boxer." As he leapt across the old porch, Cassius called out to his mom, "I'm gonna win big and buy you a brand new porch at the home show. No, wait. I'm gonna buy you a brand new home at the home show." His brother Rudy went racing after him. "Wait for me!" From that point on, all Cassius thought about was boxing. He told all the kids at school, "You're looking at the next world champion." They just laughed at him and joked, "Uh-oh, somebody must have punched him too hard. He thinks he's Sugar Ray Robinson." "Wait, Cassius, did you say champ or chump?" they teased. "Ha ha ha." Cassius imagined his name being broadcast from the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, Cassius Clay, heavyweight champion of the world." He drew pictures of the boxing robes with the words Cassius Clay, heavyweight champion of the world on the back. He knew that one day he would wear that robe. Cassius worked hard with Officer Martin every day after school. He hit the speed bag, jumped rope, and practiced shadow boxing. "Watch this! I can move faster than my own shadow." Cassius had his own style of training at home. On most mornings, his workout started before sunrise. He often ran alongside the school bus to build up his endurance. Sometimes Rudy would throw stones at Cassius to test his reflexes. "Come on, Rudy, I'm not the invisible man. Why can't you hit me?" Every night, after Martin's gym closed down, Cassius headed to a second trader named Fred Stoner. Cassius told Rudy, Fred Stoner's boys are winning all the fights in Louisville. With Stoner, he improved his jabs, uppercuts, and hooks. He learned the cross, the bolo, the clinch, bobbing, weaving, and the peekaboo. Training was hard, but Cassius said to himself, "Don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion." Every year he improved. First, he showed them in Kentucky. Then he showed the world by winning a gold medal at the 1960 Olympics in Rome. That was only the beginning. During his legendary boxing career, he won 56 out of 61 professional fights. Many believe his career outside the ring was even more impressive. He became known as the People's Champion. He fought for people who were treated unfairly because of the color of their skin or their religious beliefs. He wanted to be a positive role model for them. "I had to prove you could be a new kind of black man. I had to show the world." His words of peace, pride, and human decency inspired people from all over the world. They called him champ, and it felt great. It felt as great as racing down a Louisville street on a brand new red and white bicycle with white wall tires and shiny chrome trim. The end. Wow, that was an awesome book. So now, let's go back to our anchor chart and focus on our illustrations. So, going back to our anchor chart about illustrations, remember, the illustrations can help us learn something about the setting, our characters, show what's happening in the story, create a mood, or provide extra details that weren't in the text. So I want to go back to one or two illustrations and see what does it tell us as readers. So this illustration, wow, if you noticed in this story, a lot of the illustrations are huge and really beautiful and to showcase different things. In this particular illustration, this is when Cassius had just had his bike stolen. And you notice that we know that he's frantic, right? Searching for this bike. But then you can see the expressions in our character's face, right? And where they're at when they're looking for this bike. So it tells us something additional about the characters and something about the setting, where and when it's taking place. And it shows us this sense of urgency that our characters are having by how they look in their expressions, right? His eyes are wide open, his mouth is open, he's not smiling or laughing, right? He almost has this shocked look on his face. It's letting us know something as readers, so we want to make sure that we're paying close attention to those things while we're reading. Let's look at one more. These illustrations are really powerful because although the text, his friend Johnny lets us know that he's going to get in trouble with his parents for being late, the illustration ties nicely to what the text is saying. You notice the body language of our characters, how Cassius is standing, and you know that even if the words weren't here, we'd know his dad was angry or maybe yelling at him or upset, right? Because of how he's standing, how his arms are held out, and the expressions on our characters' faces. So today, or tomorrow in class, or sometime this week, and always when you're reading, I want you to pay special close attention to the illustrations that the author and illustrator chose to include in the book, because it's going to tell you something important as a reader. Make sure that you're doing that in all your lessons, and I will see you next Tuesday for another lesson on illustrations. Have a great day. Bye, KCPS.
Welcome back. It's Miss Mimi Antal. Welcome to ELA Tuesdays. And today we're working with students in grades 3 through 6. We're going to work on reading today in ELA. You know what? One of the things that I most enjoy, just in general, is reading. I love reading a good book. And unfortunately, sometimes I don't really have that much time just to enjoy reading. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to take some time to just read. And I'm also going to suggest that you try something to kind of increase that enjoyment that you have for reading. So, once again, this is ELA Tuesdays. Welcome as we prepare for another episode. Before we get started though, this is what you're going to need. I added some things up here on the board so that you can see today. So once again, welcome. Today we're going to work on text-to-text connections. And like I started to say initially, that's going to enable us to really enjoy what we're reading more so. It's also going to increase our comprehension, our understanding. So as you can see here, I've added a learning target. Let's see, I've got a pointer here. I'm going to try to use it and see if it helps. So the learning target today is, I can make personal connections with the text I read in order to increase comprehension and my reading enjoyment. Okay, so you remember that word comprehension. So that's what we're going to be working on today. The only things that you'll need for today's lesson would include a notebook or maybe a piece of paper so you can take some notes and jot some things down, which also means that you'll probably will need a pencil. And in addition to that, I'm going to ask that you pick a good book, a fiction read, so you can practice some of the things that we're going to work on today, later. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, do you want to count me back in?
Yes.
Oh, I wish I hadn't had that there. Okay, go ahead.
So what do you do?
Just count me in again so I can start again, like officially.
All right.
You don't have to stop it.
I just gotta do this.
Okay.
And 3, 2.
Welcome back. So like I was saying earlier, today we're going to work on making connections with the text that we read. We're going to make connections between what we read or the text and ourselves. There's multiple types of text and connections, but today we're going to make text-to-self connections. Personal connections are made when we're reading a text and when we see something in the book that reminds you of something that's happened to you. Has that ever happened to you? Have you already made these sorts of connections between text and self? Because something in the text just reminded you of something that has already happened. Another type of text-to-self connection would be when you notice a character in the book seems similar to maybe yourself or someone else you know. That's another type of text-to-self. Here's another one. What about when you find an idea in the text or in a book that's similar to your own ideas or maybe even your own opinions? Yep, once again, you would be making a personal connection, a text-to-self connection. Lastly, something you read makes you think about life or the world in a new way. So once again, listener, if you remember, I was telling you about just how much I enjoy reading. And one of the things that I enjoy most about reading and how it makes me feel is that no matter what I read, when I'm done, I'm somehow changed by my involvement with the text. It's always for better. Sometimes it helps me solidify my own thinking, expand or stretch the way I think, or sometimes it challenges me and challenges my thinking, but it always leaves us a little bit different, and that's because we're making those connections. Okay, so I'm going to give you some ideas about how you can try to use this as you're reading. One of the things that you can do is you can ask yourself some general questions about the text and those connections with yourself. Here are an example of a few. You could ask, in what ways are the events in the book like or unlike my own life? Today we're going to read a little bit from the Watsons Go to Birmingham again. And in today's part of chapter 1, it is absolutely hilarious. I can't wait to share it with you. But there's an event in this book that I definitely have a connection with. I'm sure I'm never going to forget this part. Sometimes it increases our comprehension, our understanding, but sometimes making those connections also increases our ability to remember what we read too. Another question you can ask yourself might be, what about the characters, events, or setting is interesting to me? When you think about how I am involved in this, you're once again making those connections. Here's another thing to think about. What surprised me, excited me about the book? And lastly, are the author's opinions like or unlike my own? Okay, so I'm going to start. Today, as I do the think aloud and I read the text aloud, I'm going to actually think out loud or share with you what I'm thinking in my mind as I make connections to self. And then as we go along, I'll give you an opportunity to try it too. That's what the paper and pencil is for, so that you can jot down some of your connections. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so welcome back. Let's go ahead and try to make some connections with the text. And like I said, I'm going to try it first, and I'll do it through a think aloud. So if you remember, before when we were reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham, we last left off where the main character, 10-year-old Kenny, is out with his brother de-icing the car. And in de-icing the car, actually Kenny makes a connection here. He has a flashback of experiences that happened to him previously with his brother and another friend. We're going to continue right where we left off. So, as me and Bai scraped the ice off the brown bomber, I wasn't going to get folded, or rather fooled again. I kept on chopping ice off the back window and ignored Bai's mumbling voice. Okay, so listener, do you remember where we left off now? They're outside scraping the ice off the car. And don't forget, as we continue to read through this, we're going to make some connections, some text-to-self connections. The next time I took a little rest, Byron was still calling my name, but sounded like he had something in his mouth. He was saying, Kitty, help. When he started banging on the door of the car, I went to take a peek at what was going on. Bai was leaned over the outside of the mirror, looking at something in it real close. Big puffs of steam were coming out of the side of the mirror. Stop. This reminds me of something else. This reminds me of when you see cars that take off in the winter and big puffs or plumes of smoke come out from the back of the pipes on the vehicles. It reminds me of a cold winter day. Back to the story. I picked up a big hard chunk of ice to get ready for Byron's trick. Help me! Go get mama! Go get mama! Oh! Ah! I'm not playing, Byron. I'm not that stupid. You'd better start doing your side of the car or I'll tear you up with this ice bowl. He banged his hand against the car harder and started stomping his feet. Oh, please, Kia, help me. Oh, go get mama. I raised the ice chunk over my head. I'm not playing, Bai. You better get busy or I'm telling Dad. I moved closer, and when I got right next to him, I could see boogers running out of his nose and tears running down his cheeks. These weren't tears from the cold either. These are big, juicy, crybaby tears. I dropped my ice chunk. Bai, what's wrong? Help me, Kia, go! I moved closer. I couldn't believe my eyes. Byron's mouth was frozen on the mirror. He was stuck as a fly on a fly strip. Stop. I want you to try it now, listener. Are you making any connections to the text? Is there anything here in the text that reminds you of something that's happened in the past? Or perhaps a character that is similar to either yourself or someone else that you know? Okay, I'm going to continue to read, but now it's your turn to try. So as I continue to read the story, grab that piece of paper and your pencil and jot down any connections you may have. Now what I'll do is I'll pause a little bit after reading to give you a chance to actually write that down. Okay, let's continue as we try to make those connections. I could have done a lot of stuff to him. If it had been me with my lips stuck on something like this, he'd have tortured me for a couple of days before he got help. Not me, though. I nearly broke my neck trying to get into the house to rescue Byron. As soon as I ran through the front door, Mama, Dad, and Joey all yelled, "Close that door!" Stop. Okay, listener, why do you think they were asking him to close the door? Yep, exactly. You remember how cold it is in the story? Let's continue on. Mama, quick, it's Bi. He's froze up outside. No one seemed too impressed. I screamed, Really? He's froze to the car. Help! He's crying. That shook them up. He could cut Byron's head off and he probably wouldn't cry. Kenneth Bernard Watson, what on earth are you talking about? Mama, please hurry up. Mama, Dad, and Joey threw on some extra coats and followed me to the brown bomber. Stop. Okay, take a few moments to jot down any connections that you may have had with the text. I'll go ahead and wait. Okay, let's come back together. As we finish up here, listeners, this would be a good opportunity too to share some of these connections that you have with the text with someone at home or someone near you. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. The fly was still stuck buzzing. Oh, Mama, help me, get it. Oh my Lord, Mama screamed. And I thought, ooh, let me grab this paper. And I thought she was going to do one of those movie style faints. Oh, she even put her hand over her forehead and staggered back just a little bit. Joey, of course, started crying right along with Byron. Dad was doing his best not to explode laughing. Big puffs of smoke were coming out of his nose and mouth as he tried to squeeze his laughs down. Finally, he put his head on his arms and leaned against the car's hood and howled. Byron, Mama said, gently wiping tears off his cheeks with the end of her scarf. It's okay, sweetheart. How'd this happen? Stop. Okay, I'm gonna make another connection. I'll think aloud here. I remember as a child, my mom would always wipe tears just to make me feel like it was gonna be okay. It got a little embarrassing as I got older, but I think that's definitely a connection that's gonna help me comprehend and remember what I'm reading a little bit more. Asking how it happened. Can't you tell, Walona? This little knucklehead was kissing his reflection in the mirror and got his lips stuck. Dad took a real deep breath. Is your tongue stuck too? No. Quit teasing. Help! Well, at least the boy hadn't gotten too passionate with himself. Dad thought that was hilarious and put his head back on his arms. Mama didn't see anything funny. Daniel Watson, what are we gonna do? What do y'all do when this happens up here? Mama started talking Southern style when she got worried. Instead of saying here, she said here. And instead of saying you all, she said y'all. Dad stopped laughing long enough to say, or rather long enough to say, Walona, I lived in Flint all my life, 35 years, and I swear this is the first time I've ever seen anyone with their lips frozen to a mirror. Honey, I don't know what to do. Wait till he thaws, I suppose? Pull him off, Dad, I suggested. Byron went nuts. He started banging his hands on the brown bomber's doors again and mumbling, No, Mama, don't let him. Joey blubbered out, This is just like that horrible story Kitty read me about the guy, Narcy, who stared at himself so long he forgot to eat and starved to death. Mama, please save him. She went over and hugged her arms around stupid Byron's waist. Mama asked Dad, What about hot water? Could we pour enough hot water on the mirror so it would warm up and he could get off? She kept wiping tears off of Bi's cheeks and said, Don't you worry, baby. We're going to get you off of this. But her voice was so shaky and southern that I wondered if we'd be driving around in the summer with a skeleton dangling around the outside mirrors by its lips. Dad said, I don't know. Pouring water on him might be the worst thing to do, but it might be our only chance. Okay, listeners, I think that's probably a good stopping point for today. I'm definitely interested in listening to more, and I promise I'll be back with more. But let's stop and kind of recap some of the things that we learned and we talked about today. So today we're talking about making personal connections, text-to-self connections. What I'd like for you to do, as we review, I want you to remember the reasons why we make these connections. Some of the reasons why we make these connections is because it helps us comprehend and remember what we're reading, but it also helps us to enjoy what we're reading. Now, later on today, or sometime throughout the week, as you're reading your book, remember it's to be fiction, it's to be a fictional story. But as you read your text or your book, I want you to jot down connections that you're making with regards to text-to-self as well. So today you learn that readers relate to characters, stories, and ideas, and we make these text-to-self connections. And this week, don't forget to jot down those personal connections. Okay, well that's all we have for you today on ELA Tuesdays. We'll see you next time.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to another edition of KCPS Homeroom. I'm Chris Odom, your ELA coordinator for secondary schools. Today on ELA Tuesday, we'll be talking about nonfiction and central idea, and we're going to base it around some real stuff here in Kansas City, Missouri. If you're local to this town, you've probably heard about this fountain, and let's just use that as kind of a thought-provoking starter image. Do you know the history of this fountain? Do you know the man for which it was originally named? Have you ever seen any of the events that take place nearby? Do you know the historic foundation of the building of the plaza which sits nearby? All these things are very fascinating. So to start there, nonfiction is often something that young readers decide not to give much of a chance. But what you'll probably discover is that the real stuff, the things that we're really writing about that are currently really happening every day in our city, might even be more fulfilling. So today we're going to apply your study of some very strong writing here, and powerful information that Kevin Fox Gotham is going to be somebody that we're going to feature today, in a book called Race, Real Estate, and Uneven Development. So let's go on and look a little bit about him. And he works at Tulane University as a professor of sociology, which is the study of the interaction of people over time and societies and cultures and how they are built, and often things that we can learn a lot about life by taking a class called sociology. So he's the author of this very important book, Race, Real Estate, and Unequal Development, The Kansas City Experience from 1900 to 2010. And hey, I've lived in Kansas City for now 42 years. So what's fun is to read about this and really find a lot of new information about the place that you've been your whole life. Another book that I'm hanging on to here is also pretty known in this world right now, called Racism in Kansas City, with a foreword by Alvin Brooks and written by C.S. Griffin. So if you're looking for some other really great nonfiction that could spur your study about some of the challenging issues that we meet in this city, those are two really good books, and we're going to look at one of them today. Okay, so today we're really focusing on central idea. You're going to hear me read one page from this very strong and dense language that contains so much information, and immediately we'll notice the transition from what we've been reading on these on these Tuesdays, which has been primarily poetry and narrative text. So we'll really need to listen carefully, as you don't have a copy of this book. And to do so, we're going to really just listen for what we think the central idea might be. So let's go on and define what is a central idea. Okay, a central idea is what the text is mainly about. And it is more than a topic. Sometimes you can explain a topic by just saying a word. But a central idea, you would need to explain a little bit more, because it's more of what we would consider a message. Okay, so if we were thinking about what is the central topic, what is even just the topic of this picture we see here? We see the same fountain featured from earlier, that is the once named J.C. Nichols fountain. And all these people here are representing and interests they have, right? And this has been a known location in our city for protests to occur. So we might even consider why. Why is this fountain so significant that way? And in some ways, why has it been renamed? Okay. If you were thinking about the word also central idea, sometimes people apply that to, like I was saying, fiction. But really, when you're in the fiction world, the central idea is more considered the theme. So here's a story called The Fountain. I throw that up there. And you can see in this writing about the fountain, look how it starts out. Tom walked into Nelson Mandela Square past the enormous statue of Madiba. Well, okay, this isn't a story that we would find written in the same way that we would find in this book, because it's written in a narrative style that tells a story, and it is not true. Right? So in that case, we're seeing some of the elements of fiction, same content, and we would call the central idea of this a theme, instead of actually using the word central idea. We would save central idea for things that are non-fiction, like we're going to read today. Okay, so I'm going to read you one big page of this text today and kind of give you a chance to absorb it. So in order to do so, I'm going to want you to have something to scribble on, write down with, pen or pencil, paper. Let's think about if you could do a little bit of careful listening and make some notes about what you hear. That way, all those details that you write down, and we'll think about what to put down on your paper here in a minute, might point toward what it all has to do with each other. And then from that conclusion, that might be what you consider the central idea. Okay, let's preview a couple of questions that might come up. Main thing is just what is the topic, and then what is the central idea. Remember, we're going to separate those so that if you can answer both, then you're doing a little bit more specific work than just saying one or the other. And the second question, you're going to need to explain in a complete thought. Okay, the central idea, again, remember, just the message the author provides. So what details helped you infer the central idea? Sometimes there's a sentence that tells you that, but often you have to make this decision yourself based on all of the parts and pieces that the author has given you with all the evidence and how it came to this conclusion of all that must point toward this is the central idea. Okay, so then we're going to look really closely and see if we can find a sentence in this page that helps us really find the author's central idea. And a lot of times in a nonfiction text, there'll be one of those about every paragraph. We often call that a topic sentence when we're learning our own style of writing as young writers. Okay, so then when we're done with this lesson today, I'm going to have you going out looking for a book that's nonfiction or a news article. You can take a look at it, read it for a little while, and then stop and jot a prediction of what you would say the central idea is, and then go on and find a couple details that you would say support it. Okay, let's go back to this very first question, and I'm going to do my best in reading this in my best voice. Think about this question while I'm reading page 64 from Race, Real Estate, and Uneven Development, The Kansas City Experience from 1900 to 2010 by Kevin Fox Gotham. Yet this totally planned and privately built community was based on a racialized meaning of what meant a good community should and should not contain. In Kansas City, many J.C. Nichols Company advertisements began with the slogans such as "Escape" and "Live better for less" to appeal to consumer desires for fine community with every neighborhood convenience. Nichols also emphasized the importance of homogeneous neighborhoods as a superior atmosphere for social life and raising children. As he reported to a Time magazine journalist in 1947, "When you rear children in a good neighborhood, they will go out and fight communism." Nichols' use of racially restricted covenants and FHA subsidies served as an effective mechanism for creating and maintaining the racial segregation of his settlement spaces long after the 1940s. In Johnson County, Kansas, the J.C. Nichols Prairie Village subdivision became Kansas City's equivalent to New York's Levittown, as FHA-inspired mass production fueled the construction of cheap suburban housing. In 1960, the National Association of Home Builders awarded awarded Prairie Village Best Complete Community in the United States. By this time, the community contained more than 50,000 residents, but only 2 black families. A number of long-term employees of the Nichols Company remembered how the real estate firm discriminated against Jews and blacks and became involved in suburban development. Okay. I'm going to read this other little passage here at the bottom of this page that's going to speak to the long-term employees and how they remember the real estate firm and the discrimination, like they said, against Jews and blacks. If we think back to some pretty powerful vocabulary that you heard in this passage, do you remember the word homogeneous neighborhoods? What does that mean? You might have even heard someone pronounce it homogeneous neighborhoods. Okay, do you have a guess on what that might mean? Those are neighborhoods where all of the people who live there are of the same background, right? And so you could see that was even one of the goals, it seemed, and one of the ways that J.C. Nichols learned to advertise how people could move to these communities under the idea that they would be keeping their real estate as best worth the most money it could be. And you can see why this is in a book called Race, Real Estate, and Uneven Development. And then you might even further discover why it's really compared in a common discussion about racism in Kansas City. Okay, so then this is the part that talks about long-term employees and how they remember it. You see, when I first went there to the Prairie Village urban subdivision, a Jewish person and a black person could not buy there. Mr. Nichols used to send salesmen out in the lot where white residents wanted to buy to see if there was any objective to a Jewish or black family moving in. We've always tried to promote the growth of the community along with us. If we could just influence and get everybody to think our way, well then that would be helpful for everyone. I'd like to think that most of the areas that we worked with really follow a pretty logical and fairly well-planned growth. We have never gone out and developed in a helter-skelter manner. We have always related back to our earlier subdivisions and our earlier projects and tried to keep our development that way. We try to influence the development of a whole community, not just the part we are specifically interested in. Okay, I find these parts to be very fascinating, and I would agree that there are some parts and pieces of Kansas City that, as a younger person, may not have realized were designed so intentionally. So let's look back and let's think about the message the author provides. What details helped you infer the central idea of this passage? What would you say the central idea of this passage was? And then again, just because we piqued your curiosity, what does this have to do with perhaps why we have renamed the fountain no longer after J.C. Nichols? Okay. Third question, is there a sentence that most closely states the central idea in this passage? Right? I think we could definitely discover that perhaps the one we talked about with the word homogeneous in there. So listen to this sentence and see if you think it best captures what this entire passage is about. What's neat to point out is it's really not the first of any of these sentences, but I had to kind of look for it and decide on my own, yep, that's the one that points to the most centralized meaning of what I'm reading. Nichols also emphasized the importance of homogeneous neighborhoods as a superior atmosphere for social life and raising children. Okay, so I think that advertisement and that draw to have the ability to cause some of the moving going on and the uneven development and to create these separations that exist in our city seems to be quite a lot of what that passage and that page is all surrounding and talking about. Okay, so I hope this has been some help to you in really deciding what a central idea is. We've talked about how it really appears mostly in a kind of text that we consider nonfiction, which is often based and written on true events instead of those that are made up. When you talk about those that are made up, you often use that other word, theme, to talk about the author's big idea. Let's ask you to go on. Read on a little bit. Let me know what you find. I'm so curious to see if it would be on this topic, and I think that would be a great choice to read further, or another topic that you might find equally interesting. Stop and jot a prediction when you decide you've found a central idea of a page or a passage that you think would be worth discussing home. Help at home, ask for the details that students might have come to this conclusion based on. Because the more we can ask, well, then how did you come to that conclusion? Then the more that they're going to come to this decision that that's the average way we always answer a question, and then they'll just rock it on these tests that we take in school. Also remember that if you're regularly discussing things you read and see on the news, often the news article coming through on radio or news broadcast has primarily a central idea. So you could do some of these reading and listening opportunities at home and practice strengthening your understanding of how central idea works. I hope this has been some help to you today. My name is Chris Odom. I am your secondary English coordinator for the Kansas City Public Schools, and it's been fun working with you on this ELA Tuesday. Have a wonderful day. Good morning, Kansas City. This is another edition of KCPS Homeroom, and I'm your host for the ELA Tuesday at this portion. And my name's Chris Odom. Today I'm joined by Amber Levon, and exciting story. We've been doing these a couple sessions. Amber's also from one of my creative writing classes of the past when I worked at Paseo Academy in Kansas City, Missouri. Simply put out a call to people and said if anyone would be kind of interested in talking about if they are still doing writing or what their real goals have been since high school and how they've accomplished what they've set to do, and just been fascinated to hear from everybody for one, and then excited to hear from everybody for two, and then definitely kind of mesmerized by all of the amazing stories I'm hearing. So Amber's going to share hers with us a little bit and give us an update of what's been going on with her since. What year did you graduate from Paseo Academy?
2007.
Okay, so I have no idea what you've been doing since then, but we caught up a little bit before this, and I have some clue. Catch us up a little bit, Amber. What's been going on for you since 2007?
Since 2007, I have completely just bounced around in my 20s. You know, I was touching a bunch of different things, doing a bunch of different career choices. I went to school for a little bit to be a preschool teacher. It really wasn't the right fit for me. I ended up having my own housekeeping business. It wasn't the right fit for me. I ended up working, and that's when I got into property management. Ended up working for a guy who owned his own houses, and I ended up doing that for a couple years. And then when I realized, this isn't it. I need something totally different for myself. I just need to just get away from the culture I grew up in and just try something different. And so with everything I've been doing, I ended up just cashing out my savings account. I got on the plane to Hawaii and I've never looked back. I've been here for about 2 years now, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, we were catching up on that, and that's just so. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, you're not there on vacation. You live in Hawaii. So
totally different experiences for anybody that wants to know. If you're here on vacation, it's a totally different experience than actually moving down here.
Yeah, well, break it down for us, because we're not all going to get to go right away. Like what you were telling me, it's not something you'd recommend for everybody. What's it been like to have to kind of make it there?
The biggest thing is down here in Hawaii, it's not what you know, it's who you know. A lot of connections and a lot of opportunities come from getting to know people and making friends down here. You can come down here with all the book knowledge in the world, even all the money in the world, but unless you have resources, connections, people in your corner supporting you and stuff, the chances of success down here is slim to none. So I don't recommend coming down here not knowing anybody. I don't recommend just coming down here on your own, on fly on the handle, because you will struggle a lot until you start making friends. I recommend you get to know somebody down here. Now, vacation's an entirely different story. You come down here on vacation, just have dinero, and you're pretty much set. You're all good with that. But to come down here and live, to come down here and make a name for yourself, definitely the first thing you would want to do is make friends down here first.
Very good advice. All right. Well, we're going to hear from you some more about what you've been doing. Again, you caught me up a little bit about your writing path, and that's been really interesting, again, from hearing from people from your grade level, from people all different grade levels. you know, I kind of had a guess once they would enter a program called creative writing, pursue it kind of your own choice, that quite a few people wouldn't just stop all of a sudden after it was over. So you're one of those people who's still writing quite a few different little projects and things, right? And
Yes.
why don't you bring us up into some of that idea? What are you doing? What are you trying to work on with your writing? What are you trying to accomplish by writing things?
I still consider writing a hobby of mine. I haven't like tried to publish any of my work yet. I haven't tried to become a well-renowned author yet because it's just something that I love doing. And when I can just write on my own time in my own way with my own creative thought process, then it's just so much more freedom for me with it. But a lot of the things I write, it's just a wide variety. Like I'm working on two sci-fi novels right now, as well as 2 self-help books for people. And so I gave you a sample of one of my sci-fi novels that I'm working on. Another one is almost completed. My sci-fi novels are very long. I actually have the vision of them being a Netflix series one day, but they're so there's within my self-help novels, they're just a little bit more down to earth. They're a little bit controversial. They're a little bit more for people who I wish to accept responsibility for their actions and roles and things.
Interesting. So those are kind of aggressive self-help books.
Yes, they would be aggressive because I read a lot of self-help books myself, and for me, sometimes it's a thing called tough love.
Right.
Sometimes the biggest help is just that in-your-face blunt. No, this is what you need to do.
Huh.
Because a lot of the ways I've helped myself came from somebody else giving me that tough love advice. Like, no, Amber, get your stuff together.
That's fair. I believe that's a lot of what good teachers trying to pull off sometimes in the classroom too, right? So that's really cool. Got any titles or anything in mind? I'm curious about like your concept for that and what you're going to need an interesting title. Not Tough Love. I think that one's taken.
Not tough love, yes, and stuff. But so I have one book that I called are you undesirable, ugly, quit having sex. That's the one. That's the self-help book and stuff, because there's a lot of people out here and stuff. I know, and I was worried about it being an inappropriate title. That's why I didn't turn the sample in from that one. But
Okay.
The basic point of that book is one, if you feel like you're undesirable, if you feel like you're ugly and stuff, then quit messing with people who you don't even like, who you feel like you settle for, and just put that energy into yourself. See, I have this theory about sexual energy and stuff. If you use your energy and stuff to enhance yourself instead of giving it away to somebody else, you will improve, and you will one day attract the kind of people that you want for yourself, because you've become that person for them to attract. Like, it's chemistry. If people are attracted to you, they give you a chance, but you have to make yourself attractive first. You have to make yourself desirable first. And it's more than just the looks you're born with and stuff. There's some things you can't help. You can't help the skin you're born in. You can't help your facial features, but you can help your size. You can't help being healthy. You can help having clear skin. You can help these things. You can help how you dress. You can help how you present yourself to the world. These are all things that you do have control over, so focus on that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's where I can hear your passion in that. That's really cool. So you're finding that voice in doing this writing. Is it influenced by living in Hawaii to say things of that caliber? Because I don't live there, but I'm imagining that there's kind of the plan there being very earth-centered would be to be healthy too. Is that the way of Hawaii coming through, or were you thinking this way before then?
I was thinking this way before then. I actually wrote this book. I just put a lot more detail into it since I've been in Hawaii, because the culture's slow down here. So I'm able to like take my time and just breathe a little bit and stuff, and actually put more and invest more into my writing. I have more time for it now. But I actually wrote this book when I was up in the States, when I was in the United States, because I realized up there, like, at one point I was very overweight. At one point I was not getting the desired attention I wanted, and I kept blaming everybody else for it. Like, oh, they're just shallow, they're wrong, they don't like me because they're this and that. And I was blaming other people for what I found was wrong with myself. And so eventually I just had to give myself a good kick in the pants, and it's like, you got to change yourself. You got to change your appearance. You got to change your health. And then, like magic, I started taking better care of myself, and I started getting the desired attention I wanted from the world. I started being treated the way that I desired to be treated. When you invest into yourself, you get a return on the way the world invests into you.
It's very cool. Yeah, I could hear you finding a circle of writers. I think you wrote me about that. And I wish if you were in Kansas City, I'd pair you up with someone here named Natasha Ria Elskari. And I think you guys would be really interested in each other's conversation here. Like, she wrote a book in Kansas City named Mama Sutra, and it's advice to her son. And it's been controversial because, again, you're like pushing this envelope about what writing should do. But again, I mean, who am I to say, really? I mean, I'm not a publisher, but I think there's a lot of interest there because of people not knowing what to say. So that's pretty cool. I think you have a lot to offer in that regard, because you should have heard from my vantage point how much spirit you put into everything you just talked about. So that's really neat. Well, let's wrap up a little bit here. This show is done early in the mornings and very quick. Is there anything that you would want to say out there to young people, except don't go to Hawaii without knowing somebody first? But hey, I'm loving that you're making it happen. That's like inspiring as heck to me. What else would you tell a young writer, student, person trying to find, their voice, what they could do?
The biggest thing is believing in yourself, because there's a lot of critics out in the world. There are a lot of negative influences out there. There are a lot of people who just don't believe in you. So in order for you to succeed at anything, not just writing, anything you want to do, have confidence in who you are as a person and trust that voice inside your head. Change when you feel you need to change, not when other people feel you need to change, but just move with your own 2 feet and move in a direction that you feel you need to go in, despite the backlash and despite how scary other people tell you it is. Like, write your own story. No apologies.
So, very excited for you. I forgot how to say goodbye from home Hawaii. Will you teach us?
Aloha.
Aloha. Dang it.
Yeah, Shaka's hang loose.
Yeah, it is that one. My grandpa always did that. So very cool. All right. Good to see you. Have a wonderful day and life.
You too.
Aloha.
Aloha.